Good evening, everyone. Good evening, good evening, good evening. It is Friday. We've made it through another week of COVID-19. I actually paused to say Friday because I have to think about what day it is, to be honest. We're so thankful so many of you were wanting to join in on Friday. We actually changed our time. We've been doing these on Wednesday, but we actually changed our time because we had some very special guests that were able to join us to kind of talk about some really special, things that are very current in the situation. I'm going to do a quick sound check for both of them to make sure both Mary and Stephanie can hear me. So Mary, if you're there, could you just say hello so we know that you're there?
Hi, how are you?
I'm really well, Mary. Okay, it's good to hear you. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and mute you then, and I'm just gonna do a sound check with Stephanie, and so that we can make sure we can have the transfer back and forth as we go along. So bear with me just a moment. Stephanie, are you there?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, great. We have our two guests here as well, and then we do have another special guest. I can see that Dr. Patel is on the call tonight, and so we're gonna present some of our slides, and then we're gonna have Dr. Patel jump on just to say a few words as we're going along here on the webinar. So I'm gonna go ahead and dive right in because it sounds like everyone can hear, and it looks like you guys can see my slides. Just so you know, on the back end of things, we do have Sophie, my assistant, my right hand, the person who's just kind of kept everything going and together. And if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. She'll be kind of monitoring that. And then if there is any issue, along the way, just make sure you reach out to her because I won't be able to see on the sound side. We do have some links that we're going to share in the chat box as well for you, and you will also get a copy of this after the webinar. This webinar is recorded. Any of the questions that are asked towards the end, they will also be part of the recording. We're just so thankful for technology today because it makes us, allows us to be in everybody's homes at once, and I do hope that that this has found, that this webinar finds you healthy and well and just doing well, because I know this has been a crazy time for everyone. Just before we get started here, I have a slide up here about keeping your staff safe, keeping yourself safe for sure. There are masks and hand sanitizer now available. Everyone's had a little bit of time, so if you are in need of, excuse me, just one second here. Okay, if you are in need of any masks or hand sanitizer, anything like that, please let us know. You can put that in the chat box or just email me direct later on, and I'll get you in touch with the people that have those products. All right, we're gonna keep moving along here. I just want to there we go. Now my slides are moving. Okay. So, what do we need to do? We're heading into week 4, some of you week 5, depending on where you are at in the country. And, as the weeks go on, it's important to understand what is the next thing you need to be doing. And it's going to change. The information we were sharing last week, yes, it's still pertinent. However, there's more things now that we need to be doing. And so it is critical to understand where we are at with the current situation. We're 4 to 5 weeks in. What is your situation? You need to be evaluating this as physician leaders and as business owners. We need to be evaluating this constantly. It's not something that we can just look at like where before maybe we could look at quarterly reports in business and say, okay, yeah, we're on track with our goals, or no, we're not. I mean, now we're kind of in a week by week, and things are changing constantly as the government continues to update us regarding the shutdown, update us regarding about what we can and can't do, depending on which state you're in. And so there is a lot of information that we need to make sure we are paying attention to, and that you're getting the good information from people who understand. Are you planning for the long haul? I would say that if we could ask our country's leaders right now, that if they thought we were going to be moving into the second month of this type of situation, that the economy was going to be in the situation that that it is, or that we might be looking at another couple of months of a challenge like this, of where things are going to be shut down, especially in certain areas that are high risk areas, or where we're being more affected by COVID-19. I would say that they probably thought, hopefully we'll be able to kind of get this taken care of and we'll be back up and running. Well, they now realize also that this is not going to go away overnight. And I know, as physicians and healthcare providers, I've been in healthcare space for 25 years. I've been a nurse. I have a lot of friends that are physicians and nurses, and we talk constantly, all over the country, and even some friends in other countries, talking about the situations that they're in. And everyone's situation is a little bit different, but it's still all the same. And that is that we are not out of this yet. And so we need to be very smart with our businesses so that we know how to manage this long term. I do believe there's a lot of opportunity with this. I think there's a lot of opportunity for physicians to grow their practices, as long as we, can kind of keep our head on straight and keep things moving forward. So when we talk, like every week, we've been doing these weekly. If you have not heard the past webinars, you should have gotten a link that shares with you the previous webinars. But we kind of all go along the same theme of understanding and implementing what we need to be doing now to keep things moving forward. And like I said, there's some things that continue to change, but we're going to kind of give you some highlights here. In today's world, we're being forced, and it's not come easy. I mean, it's not come easy at all, but we are being forced to think differently than we ever have before. We're having to think way outside the box. I can tell you that if I sat down in November with Mary, actually, in fact, earlier, in the later fall, and we talked about our plans for, 2020. She has a totally different business in a different part of the country, but just kind of sharing. And I know for a fact, 100%, that we did not expect or see this coming. And so even though we had plans for our businesses, everyone has to pivot. Physicians on this call, you're no different. And if you're fighting the pivot, if you're fighting the shift, we've got to find ways to open and embrace this, because it's not going to go away, and things are not going to go back to the way they were before. We cannot see patients the same way that we did. Does it mean we can't see patients? No. We just can't see them the same way as we did 2 months ago, in January and February. It's different now. We are only taking in certain patients face to face. I work with clinics and all over the country, and some even outside of the country, but some areas are able to do, see more patients face to face. Other ones are strictly on, absolutely not. And so it depends on where you're at. But it does not mean that you can't see patients. It does not mean you can't take care of patients. It's going to be different, and we have to be able to reach and find our patients in different ways. And it's also one of the reasons why I brought the guests on today that we have, because I think it's going to help you bring more resources to you to help you see and take care of the patients that you have. There's restrictions, just like we talked about. Different states, I was talking to a physician in Texas yesterday, and they had said that the governor has lifted the restrictions around office-based procedures, and he happens to be a pain doctor, and so he is, with guidelines. Obviously, they check temperatures of every staff member, every patient that walks in the door. No additional, no friends or family are coming into the office. They have to wait in the car. The car is now the waiting room. Actually, they don't even allow people to come and sit and tie up space in the waiting room. They call them out in the car on their cell phone, and they bring them right back into the space, do their procedure, and then they send them home after recovery. So things are different. It's a different way of practicing medicine, but it does not mean you're not practicing medicine. It does not mean you're not a physician. I've talked to many physicians who feel like they've sort of lost their identity because they can't do things the way they used to, especially surgeons, people that are super hands-on. But we can still evaluate and treat and create care plans for people. We can help provide them hope of, what can we do in the interim. We can put some amazing, innovative things together to help our patients along the way. No one's coming to save you. I've shared this slide on every single webinar, and I'm not going to stop because we have new people that join us every week. No one is coming to save you. This was a post on LinkedIn. If you follow David Russo, you've probably seen this, but no one's coming to save you. You know, the top 10 executive salaries in the nonprofit hospitals, you can see right here that the top 10 that are here, and you can see what their salaries are for the presidents and CEOs. It is astronomical how much waste there has been in hospitals over time. And I'm not here to say that, you know, hospitals are, you know, not caring for COVID patients. That's not where we're at. But we just need to understand that, you know, even in the way they're taking care of physicians who are in what we're calling the front lines right now, you can see where they have not always had the care providers' best interest at heart. You know, like I saw a post earlier today about how, you know, nurse has been begging for more staff, more help, more coverage in more areas. Physicians have been asking for the same thing. And now here we are in this crunch. We've been over administrated. And now we need those people, and we're having difficulty time having those positions filled. You know, funds and resources are tied up in other areas of the hospital, and you can see one of the ways, right? One of the areas right here. But the thing to take away from this slide is that it's up to you to help to make your practice survive and grow. It's not up to anyone else, and you can make your practice survive and grow. There's no doubt about it. We're going to talk about a few ways here in a few minutes. A little bit more about understanding and implementing. Anyone that has known me for about 2 minutes they'll know that most of my talks always have something very motivational. They have information about how to move forward, how to take quantum leaps. You know, I do a lot of work on this on myself and in my own business and with my own team, and I take that to my physicians that I work with as well. But this was a quote from Brene Brown that, you know, popped up yesterday, the day before, but it said, "We will not go back to normal. Normal never was. Our pre-corona existence was not normal other than we normalized greed, inequity, exhaustion, depletion, extraction, disconnection, confusion, rage, hoarding, hate, and lack. We should not long to return, my friends. We've been given the opportunity to stitch a new garment, one that fits all of humanity and nature." This is an amazing quote. It really is. And I think it allows us the opportunity to take a breath, to take a pause, to understand, okay, government has been, you know, for the physicians on this call, government has been driving me forward on how I practice medicine, on what I do, how I do it. And now is an amazing time for you to be able to fight back and to decide and how you are going to do this, and to really create your own course for the next stage of your career as physicians. Okay, just a quick recap from last week, because I want to make sure that we don't lose track of some of the things that are of highest importance right now. Where are you at today? I can't tell you enough. You know, any of you that have probably heard me talk at different conferences across the country, I talk about a term that a lot of physicians had become very unfamiliar with, maybe had not heard it before until they'd heard my talk or heard on these webinars now. What are your days cash on hand? Now, your days cash on hand is probably different today than it was, you know, a month or two ago, because your expenses maybe are different, your revenue coming in is different, and that's why it's important that we're looking at this every single week. We aren't like just taking things month to month. We have to look at this things week by week. You know, maybe you receive the grant money from the government. I know that you know, some providers have. I know some businesses that have received the, you know, some money in from the Small Business Association for the payroll protection plan. And, you know, so that might have changed your days cash on hand. Make sure you understand how to use those funds and use them correctly, and that you understand the rules around some of this money that is coming in. But your days cash on hand is essentially knowing what your expenses are, dividing that into the money that you have, and that's going to tell you how many days of revenue or money that you have in the bank today and how long you're going to be able to operate your business in case money stops immediately. Something freezes. You know, every physician that I'm talking to should still be getting revenue coming in. They should still be, you know, they should have transitioned over to telemedicine. Stephanie's going to be able to tell you some great ways on how to make that happen and keep that money flowing in, as well as other ways to grow your practice. But you have to understand how much money you have in the bank and what your expenses are. If you don't know what those are, if you don't know how to look those up, sit down with your bookkeeper, have them share with you, find out where you can cut back. I do know that every company I've talked to, and I've talked to a lot of companies on behalf of physicians in the last couple of weeks, about leases and you know, leases for equipment, supply chains, you know, a wide variety of things. And they've been more than gracious in allowing you to spread payments out. Credit cards, if you have a line of credit, call your bank, talk to them, let them know, you know, hey, this is what I can do. Don't overpay your bills to try and get to a debt-free area unless you absolutely can afford to do that, and then you're not, you know, not worrying about this. But you don't want to run out of money before you run out of time, if that makes sense. And we have to continue to evaluate this every single week, every week. File for the loans now. If you have not, make sure you do. Get on. That money is not going to go far, and it's not going to go for very long. Once that enormous number that was put up there that seems enormous and unending, once that number is tied up, then the money is gone. So if you have not done this yet, get with your bookkeeper, call your bank, call your small business association. I know with our company, our small business association for our local state, our local city, I think, actually helped my bookkeeper get the loan and the paperwork filed. File for the CARES Act. I was just on a call earlier with Stephanie today, and here is the link for this. We'll make sure that we put this link in the chat for you so that you'll have this for later, but this is the CARES Act for the Medicare funds that are out there. Make sure that you are filing for this sooner than later. Do not wait on these things, because if you wait too long, again, once that money's gone, it's gone. And you know, this is something that I've had a lot of doctors talk to me about. They're like, you know, I'm kind of embarrassed that, you know, I feel like I need to ask for this money. Don't. You are a business owner. And if your business does not survive, or if you are so overstressed and just taxed emotionally because you're worried about the strain of the financial strain on your business, it's going to be very difficult, first of all, to come up with good ideas to grow your business. And second of all, it's going to become very physically challenging, or you just essentially go out of business, and then you're not there to care for your patients either. So you have to put this in a business sense. You know, again, the world is different. The whole world is different than it was a couple of months ago, and that's the one thing to just remember. Secondly, you know, this is the first time the government has offered to give money to physicians, just kind of free money. So you know, if that money comes into your hands and you don't need it, and you want to donate it to a charity later on, or feed the kids in your area that are struggling, or families that are struggling, and you want to use it in a different way after this is kind of over, you know, that's a wonderful, wonderful thing and a gift you can give back to your community. But get the money. If you can get the money, go ahead and get the money for sure. See here, and this is something I also want you to remember, is that as a physician, you are 99% more educated than everyone else in the world. For the physicians on this call, I want you to know how powerful this statement is. This is where you can take and own your power. This is where you can jump in and make a big difference in your communities. You know, don't worry about outside your community if it's too big for you to think of something broader than that. Think about what you can be doing in your community as a physician to educate, to teach, to advise, to provide hope, to give them something solid to stand on as far as information goes, because there's a lot of information out there. Some of it's right, some of it's wrong, some of it's good, some of it's bad, but the public does not know that. I'll just share a little anecdote here, an actual anecdote. My daughter's a senior in high school. I live in Filer, Idaho. You can look that up on the map. Small, teeny, tiny town in Idaho. And she's a senior. So there are specific things around being a senior that these kids have been looking forward to and working for. One of them is graduation. It has been impossible to get an answer that made sense from the school board about what their plans are, because they're looking at something totally unprecedented. They did not expect this. They're worried about teaching other children, which we understand. And all they could think about is like, well, we can't do graduation because we can't have people standing, it violates the the physical space laws. We can't do this. And it was very, very hard for them to get out of their old way thinking. And it took a group of moms to kind of get together on a Zoom meeting at, 10 o'clock at night, because that was the only time we could all meet with a glass of wine and talk about some different ideas, because other people had access to other resources, and they're, and thinking outside the box. And then we presented to school board and they're like, it just like lifted a weight off of their shoulders because someone else had something different to offer. And physicians, you have something different to offer. How many times have you talked to your patients and felt at the end of it like, well, I just wasted my breath on that one because I don't think they heard me. I don't think they really cared about what I had to say. I don't think they understood my treatment plan or didn't want to hear my treatment plan. Well, right now, everyone's listening to you. Everyone is listening to every physician that is on this call, and every physician out there in the world has the opportunity to make a difference in their communities and even broader, much broader. And so I just want you to know how powerful your position is right now to benefit the people that are in your life. Use the resources that you have. Ask people for help. If there's things you're like, well, I just don't know how I could do that or how I could bring that to the community. Use the resources that are out there. Practice gratitude. Be thankful and so full of gratitude about the fact that you are a physician and that you do have the knowledge and the power and the ability to recreate. Physicians are creators, they're artists, they like to work with their hands, and I know we kind of get put in the science and absolute areas of thinking, but in the end, it's the practice of medicine, and now we have some great opportunities to do some really, really amazing things. Practice a healthy mindset. Any doctor that works with me at all knows right away that that I really encourage you to practice a healthy mindset. It is so easy. And even before this happened, before COVID-19, I really work with my doctors on helping them get around focusing on what you can do with your practice, not what you can't do. Because let's face it, you're told all day long the things, before this and even now, of the things that you can't do. Like, oh, you can't bill that because that diagnosis, the patient doesn't have the right diagnosis code, or you can't bill that, their insurance won't cover it. Oh, you can't prescribe that medication because we don't have the pre-auth. You're told no all day long, and you feel powerless. It steals your power. It robs your joy. There's no doubt about it. This has been one of the most frustrating things about medicine. Well, now things have opened up. Your voice can be heard. Your voice, you can make changes. You can do the things in your practice that you've been wanting to do, because not only is your community listening and your patients are listening, the government is listening, our leaders are listening, the media is listening. There's some amazing, powerful opportunities here. I get a little passionate. If I get a little choked up, just know that I've slept about 3 hours every night for the last month and a half. And so, just know that I really do believe that this can be turned around by the physicians that are really wanting to make some good choices and make some changes. Another nice quote here from the degree to which a person can grow is directly proportional to the amount of truth he can accept about himself without running away. This is a time in our life where it'd be easy to run away. We can't run anywhere because we can't go anywhere. But in our minds, we can run away. We could, just sit home and just wait and hope that this goes away. And so, but realistically, everyone on this call knows that that's not going to happen, that we need to be resourceful. We need to use our time wisely. We need to use, maybe your practice is 100% closed. I know I've worked with some med spa owners and they, really were kind of stuck in what they could and couldn't do. And, they're, what's essential and non-essential. And boy, isn't that a negative term to be told you're non-essential? My goodness sakes, what a terrible term. But, it really does depend on you, on how you want to come out of this. I am going to do a quick poll here to, just to kind of feel out a little bit about the crowd here, just so we kind of have an idea. Just kind of wanted to get a little idea about, cash flow with with everyone that's on this call. If you're concerned about cash flow, if that's something that's been coming up, even if you're in the short haul or the long haul. And so it's just really kind of nice to know where you're at. And it gives me just a second to grab a sip of water here. And I didn't say this on the beginning here, but I just want you to know that I am working from home today. I usually do these recordings from my office, but I am working from home, and we do live on a small farm. So if you hear livestock hollering, just forgive that. Anyways, it looks like most everyone here is kind of voted in here. And so, we just want to we just ask this information just so that we can help create, find out who we need to get on these other webinars down the road. Oh, where's my slide advancer here? I did not do these slides. I don't know how you do that. Okay, so the plan. With challenge comes opportunity. There's no doubt in my mind about this. And for the first time in our whole world that I know of, because we didn't have media when we've had other big pandemics or other, media in the way that we do now, the whole world is focused on one thing, and that's staying well. Okay, the whole world is focusing in on one thing, and that is staying well, not getting sick, not catching the virus. If they've got it, they're trying to get better. So they're really focusing in on staying well. And so as a physician, or your business is like, you really want to be pouring your energy into what you can be doing to help grow any opportunities around this challenge that everyone has right now. There's been so many great innovative things that are, coming out that are good things. Not everything is good, but there's a lot of great things that are coming out. And communities need a trusted voice. Just like I talked about earlier, they need a trusted voice to keep people calm and focusing in on the future. And, this is, again, a great time as a physician where you can start to share information, first of all, about your clinic, what you're doing. I know a lot of doctors, like when they, before on our earlier calls when we talked about, just let your patients know what's going on in your clinic, because they don't even know. So they sent out an email or they posted something on their social media page. If they didn't have a social media page, they created one, and then they started to invite the community to it. Those things that now is a time to start having those communications well known, because otherwise people have that whole thing of like silence is kind of the devil's work. It's just sort of like they get nervous when they don't hear anything. It's deafening to them. And where everyone now is isolated for the most part, that's also something that is difficult for people to deal with. So a doctor, a trusted voice, someone that they've been seeing, all of a sudden kind of just sort of disappears, and then it's really hard for them to understand. And so that's why I've been encouraging my physicians that might normally prescribe medications, like would just write prescriptions, that instead of doing that, I'm really encouraging them to do a telemedicine visit if their schedule allows for it. I know doctors that are now, because you don't have to work within the norms of 8 to 5 when your staff can be there. You can see people on a Wednesday evening or early on a Monday morning. You can work things. I know doctors that are seeing patients on Saturdays now, because people for the most part aren't working, or a lot of people are home more, and you can adjust your schedule to meet the needs of your patients and just like be there for them, kind of check in on them. I've had doctors' offices where their staff has actually pulled people with certain birth dates that have been seen within the last year of the practice, and they just called and scheduled a visit just to check on them, because our elders, and that's why we have Mary on the call, they're scared. My mother is 76 years old. She's home. She's near my sister, which is wonderful. But they can't do anything. They can't go anywhere. Like, they're even told, don't go out and get groceries. All those little independencies that have been kind of robbed from them. And so they're sitting home. And so just to know that their doctor cares about them and they can see them on a televisit like this, it buys them that confidence that the world hasn't stopped and that there are people out there for them. And so if you're, revenue, if revenue is an issue, where some of you had said that before about cash flow, this is a great opportunity to build up your cash flow and introduce yourself to patients that maybe you haven't talked to in a while, and see what their needs are, see if there's some things that you can do for them. And because telemedicine is now covered, it was something that wasn't covered before. And so physicians, it's been a big leap for them to change into getting used to this new way of doing medicine, and make it not just something that is something you do, but it can be very cash positive for you as well. Your expenses on telemedicine should be much lower than they are seeing patients in your clinic where you have a staff. But now is a good opportunity for you as a physician to kind of jump in and help those patients. So a little bit more about building your practice. Now is the time to learn new things. There is webinars, there is video education, there is newsletters, LinkedIn videos. I mean, there's so much information out there. Before, with physicians, the way you learned is you saw a course through an email or on a website, or you found out in a Google search something, or someone told you about it, a colleague told you about it. You're like, yeah, that sounds good. You dump $3,000 or $4,000 to buy the course, and then you booked a ticket, hotel, everything else. You traveled, you spent a weekend with your colleagues or people you have something in common with, learned something new, came home. Sometimes you implemented it, sometimes you didn't. It's different now. I mean, you could get education from anywhere in the world about just about anything you want, and you have the time to do it. And so I highly recommend that you spend your time learning new things, those things that you've been, kind of interested in that, but I don't have time to go to that conference, or I can't afford it. Things are much more affordable now too, because again, we don't have to leave our businesses. You can educate yourself an hour at a time every day. So learn new things, learn about some of these things that you've been wanting to do. I was talking to a doctor the other day who had been wanting to bring in a weight loss program into his clinic forever. He has a pain and orthopedic, and he's PM&R, he's pain and orthopedic sports medicine type clinic, and he'd been wanting to bring in a weight program because he found that if his patients, if they could get some of their weight under control or lose 15 or 20 pounds, it made the rest of what he did so much more effective. But he just didn't have time. He just, in his day, he was so busy. He was, moving in on seeing patients, in a very, very full schedule. And he's like, this was like a gift in so many ways. It's given me the time to actually sit down and understand how to put a course together. What do my patients want? He's like calling patients, asking them like, hey, if I put a weight loss program together, what would you like? I mean, I know doctors that are putting together great vitamin programs, things that they want to offer their patients for profit. Even now, there's some of these things that you can be doing now to offer as an add-on into your patients. So last week or the week before, I can't remember when it was, I'm sorry, we had someone on that was talking about CBD and the effects of CBD, especially in today's world, because we have, a lot of people are anxious, they are having trouble sleeping, and they're in pain, and they're not getting access to the things that they could get access to before, maybe prescriptions or physicians or whatever. And so CBD has been a great solution for a lot of patients, or a lot of people out there, more than what there normally would be. And so, we had someone come on to talk about, how do you choose a CBD product that, first of all, you feel comfortable with, and second of all, something that's going to profit for you. And so there's a lot of great opportunities, not just in the CBD world, but in so many different areas where you can have a product in your office that you are getting a piece of that action. And so when you're talking to someone and they're saying, hey, by the way, doc, I've been really anxious. My wife is, working long hours. She's a nurse at the hospital. It scares me to death. I'm having trouble sleeping. I'm taking care of the kids. And is there something I can do? I don't want to take a sleeping pill, but I know I need to get this anxiety under control. You can actually recommend the product that you have. They can stop the office and pick it up. You can mail it to them. A lot of these companies are drop shipping things. And then you get a piece of that. You get some profit from that. So it's a great time to be learning new things and learning how to do things. Add services, just like I was talking about before, add-on services that you've been wanting to add, but you just could not figure out how to do them. And now is a time, you just almost can't hardly move fast enough to get that moving forward. It's like, oh my goodness, how do I put this program together? Physical therapists have done an amazing job of this. My daughter had ACL surgery couple months ago over Thanksgiving, and she still was under PT, not as much as she had been in before, but they're doing virtual PT visits. And he goes, hey, I've got a video program I've already done. The PT visit was covered by insurance. The program was not. The video program, the thing that she could do at home. And she was much more compliant with actually watching her therapist on a video. And it was like, I don't know, like a $45 download. It wasn't very expensive, but it kind of kept her motivated. And doctors, there's no reason why you guys can't do something like that. You can easily do something like that and have it available for your patients. Don't worry about what the rest of the world is doing, because there's a lot of things that are, people are, kind of selling worldwide. You don't need to worry about that, because you've already got an audience right in your patient payer mix, right in the patients that you already have, that you can start to build things for and market to them. And you can get these launched very quickly. The nice thing is that because everyone's kind of in the same boat, it doesn't have to be professionally done, because you can't go to a studio and do things. A lot of these doctors, they're just having their kid hold up their iPhone and they're just editing videos on their phones and getting it into a platform that you can, see it later on. And so just know that it does not have to be perfect. Health and wellness are the hot topics right now: weight loss, staying healthy, immunity building, vitamins, anything at all like that. I'll tell you right now, for the person that can invent the way to dye your roots without screwing up your hair, I'm in. Just let me know, because it's getting pretty tough over here, and we know that the people that do our hair, that's going to be some time before they can come back with that. So just know that with innovation comes with challenges there comes innovation, that creating great, amazing things. Immunity, again, is another one. Vitamin therapy, like we talked about. All right, what is going to happen after things open back up? I know some of you guys are probably thinking, I don't think they're going to open up right away. They're not going to open up. It's not like going to be like we're going to flip on a switch and then everyone's going to come rushing back into your practice. People are still going to be scared. You need to come up with a plan on how you are going to communicate with your patients about how they can safely start coming back in. And it's going to be up to you to do that. That you don't want to wait for the government to tell you how to do it, because they don't necessarily have your patient's best interest in heart. They don't understand what your urgencies are, or your specific situation. So you need to come up with a plan of when, like for example, the group in Texas I was talking to, where they do office-based pain procedures. And so they started calling patients that had been on the waiting list. They had them check their temperature. I mean, they had a step. They started putting protocols together. Now is the time to do that. Don't wait until they say, oh, you can start, they start lifting some of the restrictions. And then you're like, well, shoot, now how are we going to do this? It doesn't have to be like it was when we shut it off, where like instantly it was like, okay, you need to stop this. The government's putting a Mandate on, and now you've got to figure out how to do something. You have some time now. Put the plans together on how you're going to open things back up. Do not expect things to go back to the same way. They are not. There's going to be still people living in fear. There's still going to be people at risk. And as we know, as medical providers on this call, that the virus has not gone away. Just the slowdown of who's going to get it and when, and the more opportunities you have to keep your patients healthy by offering them good health advice, by having other protocols that they can have in your practice that you can provide to them to help keep them healthy, the better off you are. This is going to grow patient loyalty. These are the things that are going to keep people coming back in. This is how you're going to gain a new market share of patients. This is such an important time to really be focusing in on growing your practice. It's just so important. Regenerative medicine is another way to offer bridge for services for the orthopedic pain doctors on here that are thinking about regenerative medicine, even PRP. When the surgery centers do open up, or the outpatient hospitals, depending on where you're at, it's not like all of a sudden all those knee replacements or all those ACL tears and things like that are going to be able to get those surgeries. There's going to be a backlog of patients. If you are wanting to do something like this, now is the time. Start putting some video series together about these services. Just start to educate people, not just your patients, but you can broadcast it to the community. There's all kinds of ways you can do that, and start earning some of that business, and just say, hey, maybe you are one of those clinics can do things, in a small way. If you've got an office-based clinic, you might be able to do that. You might be able to actually you bring them in, earn some new earn some patient loyalty by offering them a service that they can't get elsewhere, and it might help keep them from getting a surgery later on. Be the solution. Don't focus in on the problem as much. What are you willing to do? This is a little bit more about discernment. With opportunity, there comes a decision of what to do. There's a million different directions you can go, and you've got to have that clarity around, really deciding what you want to do, how you want to grow your practice, and understand where you need to grow and be when this pans out. What side of history do you want to be on when this is over? Do you want to be the doctor that came up with a great way to help their patients and just came out just, feeling amazing and having a great program that grew your practice way beyond the one-on-one patient-physician ratio, and you just grew that loyalty and you kept people well and happy and healthy? Or wait, you could do either way. Either way, you're going to be right, because, it's going to be one way or the other. And the decision to not decide is also going to be, are you going to be the doctor that's going to come up with a great program on educating people that patients can download and learn about, and, something that, could be timeless for you? There's so many opportunities right now. It just really comes down to deciding really what you want to do. And you don't have to do things exactly the same way. You don't have the same restrictions like you had before. Sorry. Got to go back here. I don't know how to do that. There we go. You've been given the gift of time. Use this to build your business, plan for the future, and create a practice that you want. Like I said, it's not the same world as it was a couple months ago. And it's really hard after 20, 30, and sometimes 40 years of someone telling you how you can practice medicine. Now there's the things that you can do that are like, wow, I don't have to worry about what Medicare covers because I can do this, or you can create the things that you really wanted to create. And this is personal. You've got to do the work, make a decision about where you want to go, and guard your mindset along the way. I had a doctor ask me this the other day, and he's like, I want to build a practice that if I can't work anymore, that it keeps going. And so I want you to ask yourself, what if you couldn't work anymore? What if something happened and you had to, cut way back? Or what if you just really wanted to focus on the business structure of your business, and, maybe didn't want to, necessarily, treat patients, or only were treating a specific type of patient and had other providers in? Building a business that works for you when you don't is how big business is made. So think about those things that can be coming in as infrastructure to help keep you supported, so that you don't have to work quite so hard on once this is over. You don't want to go back to having to see 30, 40 patients a day in your clinic, because first of all, it's not even going to be safe for you. And so we want to find different ways of doing business. What do you want to create? And those opportunities are great. Whoops, I'm so sorry. I am like bouncing around here. I am going to bring Mary on here now. Mary Winters is a certified gerontologist. She's a speaker, an expert witness, and consultant to professionals on resources and appropriate levels of care for the aging and elderly population. I know there's a lot of doctors on here that do have elderly patients, or have a certain patient population of that. The solutions that Mary has are amazing, and the resources, I guess, rather, she has, and the information she has to share with you is just amazing. And I know you're going to get some great tips from her. I am going to, gotta figure this out here. Bear with me for a second. Mary, I'm going to unmute your sound, and then I'm going to pull up your presentation, okay? If I can find you again. Mary, are you still there? There she is. Mary, are you there? Can you hear me?
I'm here, Christy.
Okay,
How are
great.
you?
Good. Sorry about that. Okay, give me just a moment, and I'm going to pull up your presentation, okay?
Sounds great. And I'm sure as physicians, you all know, as a gerontologist, I have a master's degree in gerontology. It's the study of aging. And many of you even may consider yourself gerontologists as well. I'll wait for Christy to go ahead and pull up my projection.
I'm so sorry here.
That's okay. I'm
I'm
just going to keep talking.
Go right ahead. Go ahead and introduce yourself. I'm going to stop the share for just a second and pull your screen up. It's just giving me a weird thing. There we go. Now I can go right ahead, Mary.
Sure. I'm based over in Southern California, over in the San Gabriel Valley. I'm not sure how many of you may be familiar with that area. It's over in the Los Angeles area. And private geriatric care management is fee-for-service. It's very different than case management from the hospital, and it's very different from case or care management that you may see within the healthcare plans. I think that they are doing a fantastic job in some plans, health plans, when they're providing this extra care management to support individuals with several comorbidities to stay out of the hospital and stay well. But they have between 70 and 120 patients that they're managing. Whereas within our practice, we have somewhere between 10 and 15 cases that we handle at a time. So it's much more focused and highly supportive. We manage resources for the individual, the senior, as well as looking at the support for their family. And the family dynamic is often a little crazy, a little off skew. Sometimes we have that adult child who may be taking advantage of mom or dad. And we are able to really problem solve with a larger team. So oftentimes physicians come to us and say, we're having a hard time with this individual situation. They're not listening, or the son is in charge and he doesn't really understand, but we do have a daughter in Michigan and she's trying to help through this solution. Can we work through this together? So those are some of the things that we work on. Christy, I'm not sure if you're able to.
I'm just about there. I'm so sorry. For some reason,
I'll keep talking.
Yes, it moved your slide, so I bear with me. I'm just re-downloading them. I apologize. I had it all there for you.
Not a problem at all. I think that the challenging part for you as physicians is, and this will come up on the slide, but I think there's so much pressure put on you too. You're a trusted advisor to your patients. They rely on you. They may depend on you for things that you're not really acquainted with, especially things like maybe assisted living or some of the skilled nursing facilities. You may go to some of those locations or not. And so you're not acquainted with the care or the opportunity to look them up on licensing. And assisted livings are very different from state to state. It's different than the federal regulations that have that are guided for our skilled nursing facilities, and assisted livings are all state to state. In addition to, you may have what is known as CCRCs, residential care communities, throughout the United States, and they're staggered care, whether it's independent living, assisted living, oftentimes memory care, and also includes skilled nursing in many cases. So I see that Christy's on board here with the slides. This is
sorry.
Great. And no apologies. But this just reiterates the whole idea that sometimes they put everything in your hands, and I can't imagine the pressure that you often feel in regards to the trust and the support that many of these individuals feel like they need. And I think oftentimes it's their family members that are also calling you. So the next slide here, can care management, geriatric care management help? It does, and it can. And let me tell you a little bit about how we provide those services. In the next slide, we have areas of support. So really, we often start with a crisis. That may be somebody at home and they shouldn't be home alone, or they're refusing care support. They may be ready to be discharged from the hospital and they're not sure how to prepare for the next steps, whether that's home or a facility. We have legal and law enforcement that we're tied into. Here in California, we have probate. Well, across the country, sometimes we are involved with conservatorships or guardianships, depending on what state you're in. Sometimes that's also working closely with law enforcement too, and how to work with adult protective services and your local law enforcement. We personally do not provide budgeting resources, but we have people that we work with who are licensed, who can provide extra support for bill paying and anything regarding financial matters. This oftentimes is the first thing that people will see kind of having a challenge with their executive functioning and where they need the most help to start with. Then we also work very closely with agencies and individuals providing home care and support for repair and housing. We have advocacy. Directly, we provide that support for the individual and make sure that their rights are not being violated. Sometimes we have to even really finesse that a little bit or work with that because we have somebody who really wants to see their abuser. And that makes it very challenging and how to coordinate some of those things. And then finally, we have the family that we also support. Sometimes they're the caregivers, but other times they are professional caregivers that we also need to guide in specific situations because there may be not understanding their personality or the issues that are coming up with their cognitive functioning. Next slide. I know you know this guy. He comes into your practice, into your clinics or your office, and he can't remember, or he doesn't really know exactly what it was that you shared, and he needs a lot of support. Next slide. Everybody says it's all fine, but you know it's not, and it's always the giant elephant in the room that either the family member or the senior will not address. Next slide. So we have these aha moments where we have to reach together and bond and find out how we connect these pieces to make a better situation for these seniors. Next slide. So why would you work with a geriatric care manager? It's interesting. I think the physicians that we do work with, we all feel like we're reducing our liability. I don't have the clinical experience. They do, but they don't have some of the other knowledge that we have. And so in supporting each other, we can help to reduce the liability. And it also helps to take some of that time away that you may be really heavily spending with an individual or a family because they just really need a lot of extra support. Next slide. Now, we just mostly deal with the psychosocial and more of their personal side where you are dealing with the clinical. Next slide. So specifically right now with some of the things that we're dealing with COVID, we're dealing with a lot of emergencies in regards to somebody maybe living in a building with COVID. We have a gentleman who has contacted COVID after coming back from the hospital from his caregiver. We have families who want to pull their loved ones out. So we're coordinating and supporting people in a variety of ways. We have a gentleman who the building is full of COVID. He so far is safe. We have him on hospice for wound care. And we were really concerned about how this wound is getting out of hand. And we're able to collaborate with some of the shifts or the openness with CMS right now. We were able to get permission in an assisted living, which is not allowed in licensing in California, to have an IV for antibiotics for him. So there's just all kinds of little solutions and strategies that we've been able to work with people. But typically we meet them initially in that emergency. And then with more about kind of a care coaching idea, we're evening the playing field. We're getting them out of that crisis, moving them more into stability, doing regular checks, whether that's by phone, now Zoom. We go physically in to go see the individual, family meetings. Sometimes that difficult talk that they're not willing to have, we have with the family or the individual. And then what I really love, in addition, moving away from the crisis, is the creative solutions that we're able to work on with people. We'll go into planning in a little bit. We have some fabulous life enrichment programs that we manage and support individuals with, and just the great partnerships that we can work with people. Next slide. So in regards to, care, well, clinical support, medical care can be, it's a science and it's an art. And it's the same way with care management too. And we're always looking to strategize for the best ways to create quality of life for our individuals, our clients. Next slide. So I developed something called FLOW. And if you look at freedom to leverage ongoing wellness, it's a close connection of managing clinical care or communicating clinical care with care management. And the result equals fantastic outcomes for your patient and wellness, where we're avoiding the hospital and avoiding large crisis. Next slide. And in visionary aging, if you see kind of this little circle here, this graph, our needs change. So as you age, your priorities change too. But in general, when we put a plan together, I want to look at the individual's wishes. What do they want? What do they not want? I want to look at what's going to keep them safe. Sometimes they are going to have a problem understanding what that level of safety needs to be, but we're going to assess that. And then we need to understand what their financial situation is so that we can create that plan to support them with the right level of care, or perhaps adding technology, so that we can create that great plan for them. So right there in that center, you see that little happy face there. And the happy face represents the plan. It's the plan that will be tailored for that individual client so that we can manage their resources and their care. Next slide. So what is the role of a GCM? We support with resources. We create a team around the individual, and that oftentimes, well, that includes their physician. And services like hospice and home health, and trainers and nutritionists. We meet them with the emotional and physical needs. And safety is probably one of the biggest things that dictates most of what we do in our planning, and create that holistic plan to support the individual. Next slide. And just quickly, I have an acronym I put together for planning, and I think it's often challenging and very daunting, large kind of a task for people to decide how to put their plan together. So I put this together, GIFT, and each letter represents a part of moving your plan forward. G starts for gather your resources. We have to start somewhere. We have to look at what we want, what we don't want, what we want for our aging plan. And we need to inform the people who need to be part of that plan. That might be our attorney, that might be our financial planner, our CPA, our family members, could include our physicians as well. And then F, we need to follow through with everything, all the documentation. I often see people who wind up going to court, not because they didn't intend to put a plan together, but they just didn't finish it or sign it, so it doesn't exist. And so it's important to dot those I's and cross the T's. And I think right now in our offices, it may be a really great way to reach out to your patients and say, we have advanced healthcare directives in our office. How about if we get this to you somehow so we can keep it in your chart, possibly, or you can have that for your personal use to keep with your family and your decision makers. And then T, finally in GIFT, is tell everyone what your wishes are, where your plan is, and how you want those things executed. And some people don't like to give those plans out, but they should at least know where they are, because if we don't know where the plan is, we're going to court again. So we're going to court for the first time. Supporting the physician, we have some great programs that we use to manage our information. We have an EMR system. We're able to communicate directly with the family members. We're able to connect directly with the hospitals and send pertinent information, medication lists, that sort of thing. We can also add trainers and nutritionists and specialists into that information. We definitely keep and update their medications so that we know we are constantly connecting with the physicians on any of those changes, any other extra services. So that is how internally we are able to support the physicians too. In the next slide. So really, we really enjoyed working with physicians because I feel like it's quite holistic and supporting everyone. It's collective, it's a team. So I've appreciated working with physicians. This particular physician, Dr. Wing, has also become a client with her mom, and it's been a great pleasure to work with her. So just here at the last, this is a way to go ahead and get a hold of us, a couple other referrals and what we do. There are services that provide free services for low-income families. I'm happy to direct anyone, your offices, to those kinds of services. And I'm happy to talk with any office about a particular situation, even without naming names, so we keep things confidential. But please feel free to reach out. This is kind of a village. We're all here to problem solve together and try to make sure that our patients, our clients stay healthy and supported, especially now. Thank you so much for inviting me, and I hope you have a fantastic weekend.
Oh, thank you, Mary. I do have a question. I've known you for quite some time, but one of the reasons why I really felt like physicians need to hear this right now is that where before, if there was an issue, family could fly in or take care of people, and now with all of these restrictions on travel, I feel like there's probably more physicians that are feeling like overwhelmed, like you said, with trying to care for patients, and because the family can't come in. What has your experience been with some of that? I know that everything changes daily, but just touch on it for just a couple seconds about some of the things that you're able to do to help give family members the confidence or help them out in the interim, until we can travel again to see our family.
Sure. So we've used technology quite a bit to help in this. I purchased Facebook portals for all of my clients, and in some instances, they've been very easy to install. Most everybody has a caregiver, so we've been able to use either WhatsApp or FaceTime through the caregiver's phones. We had a situation with a client who, 4 people in the house, 2 disabled, elderly mother with a sister who was kind of the runner, so to speak. She got the groceries. Well, she got sick and they thought she had COVID. And one of the persons in the house was a 2-person assist. So we got a portal into the house. We were able to see what was happening. We were able to deliver a Hoyer the next day and support the disabled sister, who is not physically disabled, mentally disabled. She was able to, with the mom who sprained her ankle, adjust what they needed for the more severely handicapped person in the house. We delivered groceries. We've set up systems for people to get things with groceries. Senior centers are a great way to also reach out for families. I'm happy to talk about problem solving. We've been part of a larger community support system in solving problems, and it's been a real challenge. Even getting medications to the house has been a challenge, and we've had to work through some systems to make that happen too. So
Wow.
I welcome any kind of problem somebody has. If there's a way that I can either take it to our small community to problem solve a situation, or can work through it with you on the phone, I'm happy to do that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Mary. That was very helpful. And at the end, if anyone has any questions for Mary, we'll surely take those. Right now, I have a special guest that was available to join us today. Dr. Roshni Patel, and I've known her for several years. And at the end of after Stephanie's done, we have a special offer for the physicians that are on the call. Dr. Patel has just been working just amazing things. She has an amazing facility in Connecticut, and has joined me last Friday. We spent a day together. And Roshni, are you there? Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
We can surely hear you. How are you?
Good. How are you this evening?
Good, 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 good. So Dr. Patel and I did last week. She'd been really wanting to put together a great idea that she'd been working on, but just really wasn't sure how to do that. She needed some kind of the implementation and some of the steps, and even before that, what were some other things she needed to kind of put in place to make sure her practice was secure and things kept flowing through there. And so Dr. Patel offered to come on today to talk a little bit about that time we spent together last week, and just share with you all so that you understand a little bit more about how you can actually find this time to grow, like you can actually use as an opportunity. So Dr. Patel, I'll let you go ahead and share. I think you'll do a better job than I will at that.
Thank you. So it was a full day, 8-hour day on developing your healthy mindset. So it started off with a brainstorming session, and then teasing out what my focus was, what my mission is, what my vision is. And then we started focusing on all the different aspects, from business management to where's the cash coming from, cash inflow, outflow. Those are all uncomfortable topics. And however, we were able to go through step by step, and I'm being held accountable for the plan that was set in place. We spent the afternoon implementing a plan for each one of the ideas that I had, and for practice development, as well as improving my practice. So I was part of a practice for 15 years, and then I separated out and opened up my own practice, which is a interventional pain practice as well as a regenerative medicine practice. I also have a med spa. So there was a lot to focus on. That one day was just the start, and I look forward to more time. It did help me pivot during this time period, and also helped me focus on what I need to focus on. It's either you can look at it as a negative downtime or a positive time where you get to do all your projects and everything that you want to focus on. And that's what I feel as though for the first 2 weeks, I was kind of lost, and I said, okay, I need to sit down with someone who can help me focus. It's really easy to get lost in your practice and say, okay, I'm going to look up these patients and call these patients and schedule these patients. But then you're just kind of working in the trenches instead of working on your practice. And I needed to focus working on my practice. Yeah, I wanted to be off this hamster wheel and feel as though I'm doing something more for myself as well as my practice.
Thank you. Thank you. That probably is, I know, like you said, you've been in practice for a long time. You weren't new to a practice. You were really trying to make a transition and grow from that. And so I do appreciate you from the bottom of my heart, from across the country, for coming on tonight, because I know it's a little bit later there than it is here. So
Thank you.
I do thank you. And if you have any questions for Dr. Patel, I'm sure she'd be happy to take any questions at the end, or I can email her any questions that you might have. But thank you so much, Dr. Patel. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Okay, so now without further ado, we're going to bring Stephanie Thomas on. Stephanie, are you there?
I am.
How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Oh, I'm good. I'm good. Thank you. Just to briefly introduce Stephanie Thomas, she is a certified professional coder and owns Elite Billing and Coding, which is a great, different than, other billing and coding companies. She helps with, credentialing. She has, just so much expertise in what she does. And we get to work together every day, which is just an amazing thing. And she is going to offer some insight tonight on how to code for excellence in the telemedicine space, which is the hot topic right now. And we want to make sure we leave you with some good takeaways on how to make sure that, the codes that or things that you can get billed for, or that things that you can bill for, you're actually getting paid for. So Stephanie, I'll let you kind of briefly introduce yourself, and I'm going to pull up those slides for you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Christy. Thanks so much for having me as well. I'm so excited to be here. Yeah, as Christy said, telemedicine is definitely the hot topic right now. I get multiple emails and calls a day from providers' offices asking how to bill these and dealing with denials and wanting to just make sure they're billing things correctly and making sure they're getting paid correctly. So want to just kind of give you a little bit of information on that. Don't want to keep you too long. I know it's a Friday night, but want to give you a little bit of information. So first I wanted to show you just the different kind of modifiers that we've got for telemedicine. I want to point out that there are a few modifiers that we'll use for just certain payers, and then we will use just the CS modifier, the very last one on this list, just for COVID related services. So the 95 modifier is the one that we're going to use most for most services that we're going to do via telemedicine, whether it's COVID or not. And so that one is what most payers are wanting these days. Then we also have our GT modifier, which is for audio and video. And then we have the GQ modifier, which is for if you were to record maybe a video and then email it, or if you were to do potentially maybe even just a telephone visit. So that can be used in some circumstances. Go ahead to the next slide. So I pulled this right off of a website, and this was accurate as of today. Things are changing on a daily basis. So be sure to check things with your commercial payers and with your Part B carriers, your Medicare carriers, on a very regular basis, at least weekly, because like I said, things are changing almost daily and new releases are coming out. Make sure also, if you aren't already, be sure you're on their email mailing list, so you're getting their email updates every day, so that you don't have to go out and look for these updates. They'll just send them out to you. So this is for Medicare specifically. We know that most commercial payers do follow Medicare guidelines, but these are specific to Medicare Part B. And most of the carriers that follow Medicare guidelines, commercial, and also those capitation agreements as well, like your United, Medicare Complete, those plans that go through your commercial carriers. So if we've got an office visit that's related to those to actual COVID-19 and that we're doing testing, the place of service with Medicare is now 11, no matter if it's telemed or an office visit done in the office. So you need to remember not to use a place of service 2. Initially, when they first released the information on how to bill these visits, they wanted us to use 2. So a lot of people are starting to get denials. So if you have gotten any denials, rebill those with a place of service 11 and you should get payment.
My apologies, that was me.
Oh, you're fine, no problem. And then also they have just released a new modifier, CS, as of, I believe it was last week, they released that. And that is just, again, for COVID related visits. Mm-hmm. And then if you do have a telehealth visit related to COVID-19, they want both the 95 modifier and the CS modifier. So they have come out and released that they do want both of those, which is good, because at first we didn't know. So I was putting both, just hoping for the best, and I was thrilled to know that I was doing it correctly. If we have an office visit not related to COVID-19, we're just going to bill the 11, and we're not going to do any sort of modifier. So if you're seeing a patient in your office, you don't need any sort of modifier. If you're doing a telehealth visit that's not related to COVID-19, you're going to do the place of service 11 again, and then the 95 modifier again. Those virtual check-ins, which are the G codes, those you do not need any sort of a modifier on, and you will use the place of service 11. And then the e-visits, which are those 99421 through 423s. These have been really something that a lot of people have been questioning, thinking that they're going to get paid really well for these visits. These get paid terrible. They get paid like $14 to $18-ish. So I would not recommend these e-visits. These are usually through some sort of a portal, and you know, they're, again, you can't bill this and an office visit or some sort of a telehealth visit. It's one or the other. So if you're going to be doing some sort of a visit, then I would recommend doing a telehealth visit, because you can get, if you're, you know, already going to be doing it, you may as well be getting the reimbursement you deserve. But if you do that e-visit, you can go ahead and bill that code, but you do not need any sort of a modifier. Moving on to commercial payers, Cigna is the one that has been the most confusing. They were one of the first to come out and say they wanted place of service 11, which we were all very confused about, but now that everyone's starting to follow suit, it makes more sense. The reason they did that is because they were also one of the first to say that they weren't going to charge a patient a copay. And so they wanted to make sure they could keep that straight. And so they wanted it to be a place of service 11. And then they also said they wanted the modifier GQ. They since have come out and said they want modifier GQ, GT, or 95. So whatever fits the best for your patient is what you should use. United Healthcare, place of service 11, modifier 95. Aetna, they are still wanting place of service 2, modifier GT or 95, whatever is most appropriate. And then most other payers outside of those other three, I'm recommending to use place of service 2 and then modifier 95. If you do get a denial, then at that point, I would recommend switching to a place of service 11 and rebilling as a corrected claim. That's going to be your best bet to hopefully get the reimbursement. One other thing I want to mention just quickly on commercial payers is there are some of commercial payers that do require that you utilize their certain portal instead of using FaceTime, instead of using whatever portal you may have through your EHR or through your office. So just be sure that you understand which plans your patients have and be sure you're using the correct portal. It may change whether the patient has a copay or doesn't have a copay. So you might have upset patients if you use the wrong portal, and so just be sure you're making sure you're aware of that prior to those visits. Also, with your commercial payers, you want to be sure that you are keeping track of what you're doing to make sure you know if it's working. You want to track your visits you're billing, perhaps make a spreadsheet of the visits that you have billed and how you billed them. And then when you get your payments, track your payments to make sure you did get paid appropriately. Most payers are now waiving any sort of a telehealth copay. So if you're finding that a lot of your payers are still leaving a copay for your patients, it's good to just question that so that, if you need to contact the payer to get additional payment from them, you can do that and not get an upset patient phone call. You can go to the next slide. On documentation requirements, this is based on CMS, but most everyone follows CMS guidelines for our documentation. When you're doing a telehealth visit, obviously you can't do a physical exam when you're not with the patient, right? And also history of present illness. Those two things are actually not required in your visit. If you pull them forward from a previous visit, that's okay, but just be sure that it's documented that those two things are from a previous visit. Also, we do want to utilize time for the most part for your telemed visit because we don't have those other two bulk parts of our note, the HPI and the physical exam. So they have recommended, CMS has recommended that we use 2021 guidelines, which again doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but that's what they're telling us. But they have recommended that you document time in your note and you utilize the 2021 guidelines. So I did put that on this slide so you have those. And again, we would just use the E&M visit, that we would use in our office if the patient was face-to-face with us. Next slide. Listed here are the resources for the information that I gave you in this presentation. I know since things change so much, your billers might have some questions. So I wanted to be sure that you had the information exactly as I gave it to you in this presentation. So these are exactly where I got this from. So please give this to your billing representative, and if they have any questions, please don't hesitate to have them reach out to me. I'd be happy to answer their questions.
Oh, Stephanie, that's wonderful. I just launched a quick poll. If you want to have these links sent to you directly, we'll be happy to do that. Just go ahead and let us know if you would like those, and we'll make sure that you get those. Everyone's going to get a recording of this, but this way you'd actually get the slide that has this information on it. Now, Stephanie, I know you've been getting some payers that have started to pay on the telemedicine. You know, what have your challenges been? Do you mind sharing that, you know, as far as, you know, maybe any challenges you've had?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the biggest challenges for absolute certainty have been the different policies that have changed from the beginning of when this started about a month or 5 weeks ago to now. And so, you know, we will go ahead and bill something out, and then it changes a week later and we bill it the same way, and then we, you know, get a denial. So what maybe worked 3 weeks ago doesn't work now. And so, like I said, when you bill something out, have your protocol with your staff so that they know, okay, if this doesn't work, this is what we're going to try, so that we're not leaving those claims sitting idle in our AR, and we have a plan of how to get those billed again and get that money back in, you know, get those claims back out and get that revenue back in our bank as soon as possible.
Okay, that's really, really good to know. Because I know that, you know, that's the, you know, unnerving part about this whole thing, is that there's so much that's, you know, it's you know, it's just new. Everything is new. And, you know, trying to make sure that the revenue does not stop is critical. It's important, especially when, you know, maybe some of our more bread and butter type cases, or, you know, services have somewhat slowed down. And so I think we want to make sure that, you know, we do have good resources. I know Stephanie's happy to answer any questions that you might have. Before we go much further, I just wanted to share with you a little bit more about what we're doing, you know, with the group that's on the call today. You know, we are focused in on, you know, business development for physicians, and we're really trying to put, you know, good information together for you. And like what we did with Dr. Patel, and we just essentially, because like I said, our whole business model shifted as we, you know, as the situation changed. You know, we had several, just so you know, we were, you know, we would do it like what we called a VIP business retreat, where we would go to a location, and kind of you know, 2 or 3 of us would get away for a weekend, and we'd focus in on your practice. Well, obviously those did not happen, and we had to pivot, you know, just like you have to pivot right now in your business. And so in your email from me that you received, to click on, you know, to kind of even sign up for this, there was an opportunity to kind of get 20 minutes of complimentary time with me. A lot of those spots have filled, but I did want to share with you a little bit more about like what we did with Dr. Patel. We have done what we've called these VIP strategy days, where we have really focused in on the practice. The one when we put those out a week and a half ago, the VIP, because I only can do 2 a week. I actually opened up an extra one for next week because they've gone so fast. And then we also have opened up a 3-hour strategy session, where you can actually just come on and we could do a 3-hour strategy session. So I'm going to have Sophie go ahead and put this link in the chat box, because I think, you know, there's going to be a lot of doctors that are going to be really interested in, you know, in businesses in general. There's never a better time than now to really get started. And now is definitely the time to move forward and really understand what you need to do with your practice. I am ready to, well, and I have not seen the chat at all because I've been, focusing on this. Let me just see if there are any questions that have come through or anything in the chat.
Christy, I'm watching chat, and there's nothing in the chat. I just put the link for the VIP Day sales page in there.
Thank you.
And I also have the opt-in page for episode 4 ready if anybody would like to see that and get and already opt in for episode 4 next week.
Fabulous. That's fabulous news. Next week, we are actually, we're going to obviously do our update once again to see what's changed from last week to this week. Every week there's something new. So we'll have any updates as far as, business strategy or anything that needs to go in there. And then we're going to have a guest on here, a physician who has really done some amazing things as far as creating a product to sell in her clinic, and is taking this nationwide, and is looking to actually take it beyond borders. And she's a physician just like everyone on the call, and she just really had a passion for something special and really just worked to make this happen. And she's going to be able to share some of her ups and downs with that. And then, like I said, each week we want to have a special guest on here that is focusing in on doing something different. Whether it's like we had Stephanie coming in to talk about the how to code correctly, because boy, we sure need that right now. With Mary talking about senior solutions, and I'm actually going to post a quick poll question there about Mary. The senior solutions thing is so critical right now, because they are definitely our at-risk patients, and physicians that are on here, to be able to have someone else who can kind of lift some of that burden from them, about what can we do for our patients, and help them understand better. I think that is just amazing. Let's just double check here, make sure there's nothing in here. Oh, the link there for episode 4 is in there. A lot of doctors are now just asking to be automatically signed up so they get the email and they don't forget to sign up for that. So if you'd like that, just go ahead and click on that link, copy and paste it, and then you'll automatically get signed up for the webinar next week, and you'll get the reminder. Again, the recordings are always there, so you can go back and listen to it again. I do thank you so much for joining us tonight. I know it's a Friday night, and I know none of us are really, doing too much, but but I sure am glad that you spent your evening with me. It's my honor, and I look forward to continuing to offer more solutions for you. If there is something specific that you would like to learn more about on these webinars, please email into me. If you've received this email to be invited to this webinar, I have your email, so you have my email, so you can just reach out to me. If you have any questions about what I'm doing with other doctors, about VIP days and how you can actually move forward, or you just want to book a 20-minute strategy session with me, just let me know. I'm here to help. We've all pivoted. We're all making changes, and we're all looking to make the world a better place. I really think that I really believe in what I said throughout this webinar with great passion, that I feel physicians are now in the best position ever to really grow the practice that they want. I hope that you remain well. I hope your family is well. For our speakers tonight, thank you for staying so late with me. Sophie, thank you. I know you're in Tennessee, and you you stayed on a little bit later, and I do appreciate you joining us this Saturday night or Friday night. And please stay well, and God bless. And I hope you continue to stay well, and that next week we'll have good news to share about the situation, and more good news, because I know there's a lot of good news that's coming out of it. So God bless, take care, and have a great weekend.